Well, all right, and it is no longer morning, so I wish you all good afternoon. And today we officially concluded the 2026 spring sitting of the Alberta Legislature. During the session, we introduced and passed 17 government bills focused on protecting Albertans, strengthening our economy, and supporting long-term growth. I will highlight some of the key legislation we passed, but before I do, I would like to take this opportunity to talk briefly about what's happening here in Alberta. Although I am here today in my role as a government House Leader, I also serve as Alberta's Minister of Jobs, Economy, Trade and Immigration. In that role, I regularly travel throughout the province and participate in international trade missions to promote what Alberta has to offer. The message I share is simple. Alberta is open for business. Under the leadership of Premier Danielle Smith and this government, that message is resonating and delivering results. We have seen it in our job growth, with Alberta adding more than 89,000 jobs between April of this year and April of last year. Over this same period, the rest of the country lost more than 22,000 jobs. Last year, Alberta led the country in economic growth, and we are projected to do so again in 2026. These results reflect the direction and priorities of Premier Smith and this government. Priorities focused on economic strength, opportunity, and prosperity for all Albertans. That same focus has guided the work done in the legislature over the past 3 months. When it comes to government responsibility, there is nothing more important than protecting Alberta's children. This session, we took action to strengthen protections for children and families by setting clear expectations for neutrality in classrooms and reinforcing safe and respectful learning environments for both students and for teachers. We also took steps to ensure children cannot access explicit visual content in public libraries without parental consent. In addition, we introduced legislation to strengthen safeguards for vulnerable Albertans regarding medical assistance in dying. Alongside other policies, this legislation ensures medical assistance in dying is not available to Albertans when mental illness is the sole underlying condition. This session, our government completed the Health System Refocusing Initiative and expanded access to preventative testing and evidence-based addiction treatment medication. Progress also continued on the implementation of the Alberta Sheriff's Police Service, helping make Alberta a safer place for all who want to call this province home. The Immigration Oversight Act was passed to establish stronger protections for newcomers who come to Alberta to work and for opportunity. It also gives the province greater oversight into how foreign worker programs are being used across Alberta. We have a reputation to protect. The Immigration Oversight Act will help crack down on bad actors who mislead, abuse, or scam foreign workers and exploit the immigration system. Those who would do that are on notice. This session, we also introduced legislation aimed at reinforcing Alberta's position as the best place in Canada to invest and to do business, reducing barriers to interprovincial trade, cutting red tape, and accelerating major project approvals create economic opportunity and stability. The opportunity translates into mortgage-paying, grocery-buying jobs for families across the province. As Alberta stands on the verge of major investment, it is important that now, more than ever, to give investors confidence that projects worth hundreds of millions of dollars or sometimes billions of dollars are not tied up in endless reviews. The expedited 120-day Approvals Act provides the clear and predictable timelines businesses need. Through the Alberta Whiskey Act, we are establishing clear standards for Alberta whiskey and creating a high-quality, recognizable product that can compete around the world. We also passed another Red Tape Reduction Statutes Amendment Act to reduce unnecessary regulatory burdens and stop changing the clocks twice a year, a practice that frustrates families and businesses. And I would be remiss if I did not mention the action we took to call on the federal government for a more collaborative approach to appointing Superior Court judges, along with establishing a formal process to recognize veterans who may be worthy of receiving the Canadian Victoria Cross. The work completed during this session matters, and it will make a real difference in the lives of Albertans. It reflects our plan to grow the economy, strengthen communities, and ensure Alberta remains the best place to live, to work, and to raise a family. And with that, I'm happy to now take questions.
Perfect. Thank you. And before we take questions, I just want to say thank you to everyone for their patience on getting today's press conference started. We will start with questions here in the room, and then we'll jump to the phones. Saw Lisa Johnson put her hands up, but if you can state your name and outlet, we'll do one question, one follow-up.
Thank you, Hunter. Lisa Johnson with the Canadian Press. Minister, if you can cast your mind back to after the budget was introduced in February, that started the session, and then we had budget
Seems
break.
like a lifetime ago.
Right? I've aged 70 years. When the legislature came back, or as it was coming back in early March, we saw a group of more than a dozen First Nation chiefs show up at the legislature demanding that your government put an end to talk around separatism. They brought a non-confidence motion. Well, the NDP brought it, but at their behest. Given everything that's happened since then, I mean, do you think that your government has taken their concerns seriously in light of the court decision that we saw yesterday?
I think the Premier has been pretty clear with her comments about our response to the court decision. But with regards to what we do as a province, our job is to respond to everyone. We are not leading the conversation on separatism. We have created a process through Citizens Initiative that allow all Albertans to have their say and sign petitions on matters that are important to them. So we have facilitated the process, but we are not leading the charge. We also understand that despite the motion, we have a job to do in the province of Alberta, which is to consult all Albertans. What is front and center right now, and what I'm hearing, what my colleagues are hearing, is the frustration they have after 10 years of Justin Trudeau's Liberal government and the damage, the real damage, lasting damage they have had on our province and making us, despite all the work we've done to be a competitive jurisdiction, doing everything they can to make us less competitive. If I was looking at ways that I could make a province less competitive, that I could destroy their competitive advantage, there's not much I would change from what Justin Trudeau did to the province of Alberta. With that, there are real frustrations around Alberta about the state of where things are at because of the Liberal government. Now, with the leadership of the Premier, we have seen more collaboration under the Carney Liberals, including a memorandum of understanding, helping us to get our energy projects, and there'll be more to come on that very shortly. But we hear the frustrations on both sides, and we've created a process, and that process is going to play out.
And on that same issue, I understand that this is a process that is happening outside the legislature. I don't think there was anything directly related in this sitting to the Citizen Initiative Act. That stuff happened back in the fall. But it did occupy a lot of time. I mean, the NDP was very focused on asking questions about this issue, accusing the government of pandering to separatists. I mean, to what extent do you think that this issue has bedeviled this sitting in either distracting from your mandate or from your agenda this sitting? To what extent has it?
Well, it's a great question, and you're right. It has occupied a lot of time from the NDP. You'll see we passed 17 bills this spring that deal directly with the issues that we feel are important based on what we hear from our stakeholders and from Albertans. But the NDP choose to continue to occupy their time talking about separation. The fact is that that is the only thing they're talking about because they have no plan for anything else. What matters most to the province, what I hear at the most fundamental level, is the ability to put food on the table, pay for mortgages, pay for groceries, as mentioned, with food on the table, and maybe have a little bit of money at the end of the month to put away for a vacation. So we've introduced the tax cut that saves Alberta families nearly $1,500 a year. We continue to be the lowest tax jurisdiction in the country. We're the most competitive business jurisdiction in the country. So all these things are what we're focused on. If the NDP had a real plan, a credible plan to deal with some of those things, we'd love to hear about it. But you've listened to Question Period just as long as I have, and you report on Question Period. And I would ask back to anyone in this room or anyone who's watching at home, did you hear a credible plan from Naheed Nenshi and the NDP? And in my opinion, having heard almost every word of it, the answer is no. Okay. So they can talk what they want to talk about. We're focused on the economy, jobs, and supporting families.
Thank you. We'll jump to Catherine here.
Sure. So previous sessions, you came under criticism for the use of time allocation. This one, you used a programming motion that was even more restrictive on the time. And even before you took to the podium here, there's a news release saying, hey, we weren't consulted on this. There's still so much unknown about these bills. So why bring in a programming motion on these very complex pieces of legislation when people still don't understand what you just passed?
Well, I'm not sure who you're referring to about not consultation.
In this case, it was the Health Sciences Association of Alberta on the Health Statutes Amendment Act.
Okay, well, I can't comment to that whole process of consultation, but I trust my colleagues in cabinet, and I trust the Premier is doing robust consultation on the legislation that we put forward. I know my two pieces of legislation, the Mutual Recognition Act and the Immigration Oversight Act, we consulted and continue to consult as we go through the regulatory process. But to your question about time allocation, the changes we made actually saved the legislature and the members there debating this 4 hours and 45 minutes of time, of legislative time that we otherwise would have been doing, standing around, waiting for votes to happen, because the bells used to be 15 minutes, now they're 10. So what I think this did is create a process where there is more debate time in the chamber for the opposition and the government to represent their constituents' concerns. I have not heard a lot of feedback on the negative side, besides the NDP saying they want to debate endlessly. This gives more average time per bill, and that is a good thing. That is what Albertans expect of us. Now, I'm not going to fully nerd out on all the legislative, standing orders and such, but because that's, not what everyone wants to hear about. But what I can say is we made these changes to streamline the process of making sure we get to votes faster, but also to ensure there's more time for robust debate in the chamber. And I'm pretty sure, I'm certain we accomplished that.
Like, for example, I heard a question during debate that I didn't hear answered. Like, what happens if somebody pays for an MRI, it does not show cancer, and then maybe they go on to develop cancer, but they didn't go to their doctor to order a test because they got an MRI and thought everything's fine? Who's liable in that case? There's so many unanswered questions. So what would you say to people who still have questions about your legislation, but you passed it without answering?
I wasn't there. I wasn't there for that specific instance. But what I can say is that we continually consult stakeholders, and as issues are brought up from stakeholders, our intent is to address them. Same thing with my Immigration Oversight Act, ensuring that we get this right so it's not harming industry, but it is having the intended consequence of regulating immigration consultants and employment recruiters, but also having making sure that immigation in the province is meeting its demands. So there may be unanswered questions out there, and my job and my colleagues' job is to answer those. And so we'll continue to engage with the public. But as it pertains to the time allocation motion, we have created a system where there is more time on average per bill to debate than there was prior using previous time allocation motions, and that's reflected with the amount of debate time. So I'm happy with where we landed on this.
Okay, we'll jump to Janet here.
So putting your jobs hat on, how is the government gauging the economic impact in Alberta of the separatist movement and discussion around it?
It's a great question. We continually consult with stakeholders, with industry, to better understand their concerns. And there's a lot of concerns. But what I'm hearing most is they're concerned about the regulatory framework within the country of Canada. When we have major projects that are sitting on the sidelines and waiting for an opportunity to get their day before the federal government, that is a real concern. And people look at Canada, or at least they have in the past, as a place that is just too difficult in which to do business. So my job as the minister is, one, to consult those stakeholders, and two, to find reasonable solutions that don't necessarily always just require things like tax cuts and tax credits, and often deals with the regulatory environment. The business community wants a stable investment climate in Alberta. As much as one can have, they have it here in the province. And the Premier's job, and she's done it miraculously well, marvelously well, is to make the case to the federal government that Alberta is a strong player on the international stage. We deserve respect, and she's done a good job of that. And there'll be more news to come on that and other important economic announcements here in the not-so-distant future.
with respect to, I mean, we've heard what you've had to say many times about federal policy though, but is the government not doing any of its own research, identification of how this separatism conversation is affecting economic indicators in this province? Are you relying on other bodies?
Well, I first want to say that we have not started this separatist conversation. The people who started this separatist conversation are the federal Liberals and the NDP caucus who have bolstered them up for the last decade. Albertans are fed up and they are frustrated with the way that they've been treated. Albertans just want a fair, level playing field with as few barriers as possible. They get that with this government. But despite all the work that we've done, despite the leadership of our Premier, many Albertans still feel disenfranchised and marginalized by the federal government. And so while people continue to say that we're perpetuating this conversation, go back and look at the Hansard record. If you do a word count on who says that word more often, I can tell you it's not the UCP caucus and it's not the Premier. We're talking about jobs, the economy, affordability, investment attraction, and the list goes on. Things that matter most to Albertans.
Okay, we'll jump here to the front row and for another question in the room, and then we'll go to the phones.
Eric Bay, Global News. Minister, given what you said about letting the citizen initiative process play out, will you be pushing for government to put a separation question to a referendum?
Like I said, the process is going to play out. The Premier has answered that question in terms of the appeal process, and that's about all I'm going to say on that. I think there are frustrated Albertans. Their voices need to be heard. Between the Forever Canada petition and the separation petition, there are 700,000 Albertans that want to have a conversation about where Canada stands in Confederation. I would not be doing my job. The Premier would not be doing her job if we said, no, you can't have that conversation. That's top-down leadership. That's what the opposition would like to do. We are not going to tell Albertans what to think. We're not going to tell them how to feel.
And then you mentioned more stuff potentially coming on the MOU here very soon. Do you feel like whatever comes out of that could have a chance to maybe tamp down some of these feelings of dissatisfaction that's led to this whole separation question? Or is there anything at this point that will help that?
Albertans want to see action. We're a province of action. People came here for an investment climate, not the weather climate, and they want to see things happen in this province. We are moving towards more egress for our products, and we're also moving towards more investment in other sectors, things like aerospace, defense, advanced manufacturing, things that I've been working on a lot. We're also expanding our footprint and the awareness of what our province is doing around the world as the Premier, myself, and my colleagues do trade missions, and we're seeing success. People around the world know who Daniel Smith is. They know where our province is located, and they want more of what Alberta has to offer. So those are the results that we're focused on. That's what the Premier's focused on. While the NDP continues to play childish games on things that are not hitting the pocketbooks of Albertans, they have no plan. We have a plan. We're acting on it.
Okay, we will jump to the phone. So, operator, if you can put through our first caller.
We have a question from Tim Brooch from CTV. Your line is open.
Hey, thanks for taking my question. I know it's in front of a committee right now. I'm just wondering, looking forward to the next session, how urgent does the government consider this Forever Canadian committee review and getting it all finished?
Well, it's obviously very urgent. That's why we struck the committee. They're doing good work, and we anticipate a report from them at some point in the not-so-distant future.
Yeah, just on that, I mean, now we've heard a lot in the last 24 hours about duty to consult First Nations people. There's no duty to consult First Nations or really any other group on this Forever Canadian petition, right? So just in your mind, could that allow it to be hurried along and maybe become a referendum question in the fall?
Again, I don't want to presuppose the work of the committee. I appreciate the diligent work of all members there, and I anticipate a report from them. But this does go back to a question that I don't think has been answered by the NDP, which is what is their anticipated result from the committee? Thomas Lakazik made it very clear in many public statements online that he expects that once they reach the threshold of signatures, they expect a referendum. Now he's backtracking. So I'm not quite sure where he stands on this, though his public comments are pretty clear until recently. I wish he'd make up his mind, but the reality is the committee has work to do to determine what next steps will be for us as a government. But I will leave the committee work and the diligent work of the members there in their court, and they can deal with it, or rather, then I expect their report at some point.
Okay, operator, if you can put through our second caller.
There are no questions at this time.
Okay, and that will wrap up today's press conference. Thank you, everybody.
I asked about something you said in the house. You said that your kid called and said, "Miss you, Dad." Can you talk about what it's like to be in this combative atmosphere, sitting late into the night and trying to pass, I believe it was 18 bills by my count?
Are you trying to cut onions in here? Ask what my kids didn't know what they said. Yes, I am happy, and this is where we definitely have to cross over partisan lines and acknowledge that regardless of where we stand in the Assembly, we're all here for the people that we live with, that we work with, our friends, our circles. And I call my kids every morning and on their way to school just to see how their day is, how the night was before. And they say they miss me, and I certainly miss them. I also very grateful for my wife and the diligent work that she does whenever I'm gone. I could not do the job. I could not stand before you without my wife. She's incredible. And I believe that everybody in the Legislative Assembly has their own Nicole Schow behind them, backing them up, in whatever form that may be. And I'm very grateful for those people that we don't see, but I know are supporting the other members. And that's important work. It cannot be forgotten by all Albertans that there are families, direct families involvement in this. And so grateful for them, grateful for my wife, Nicole, for my kids, and for their support.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Is it 17 or 18?
I counted 18.